Jonathan Haidt addresses the fundamental contradiction at the beginning of the happiness hypothesis. Although humans are reactive, fearful, and tribal beings formed by evolutionary necessity, we also yearn for connection, virtue, and meaning. By fusing ancient wisdom from thinkers like Jesus, Plato, and the Buddha with empirical science, Haidt aims to test timeless truths. His core claim is that happiness doesn't result from mere pleasure-seeking, but arises at the intersection of emotions and reason, between mind and heart, between individual and community. As he frames it, happiness comes from between, the right relationships between the self, others, and something larger. Haidt organizes the book around key hypotheses drawn from ancient wisdom and rigorously examined through the lens of modern science to structure his argument. His first metaphor, borrowed from ancient philosophy, compares the mind to a rider steering an elephant. The rational rider perched atop the instinctual elephant represents our conscious will over our powerful unconscious desires. While people like to imagine themselves as rational, Haidt argues the elephant often rules. Our emotional system, the elephant, runs on gut feelings, habits, and intuitions, and only the rider's language-based reflection can guide or restrain those forces. From this duality springs Haidt's first key insight. Understanding happiness requires recognizing that we're not whole, singular agents. The ancient hypothesis says so implicitly in diverse traditions: Buddhist mindfulness, Stoic detachment, Christian humility. All cultivate awareness of inner division and the possibility of harmonizing conflicting parts of the self. This sets the stage for Chapter 2, where Haidt looks at reframing as a means of changing your mind. He draws on cognitive behavioral therapy and Stoic philosophy to explain that rearranging how we interpret events shapes our emotional responses. Haidt takes inspiration from Benjamin Franklin's quote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them," showcasing how ancient insights into the power of perspective align seamlessly with modern psychological tools. Next, Haidt turns to virtue ethics and moral psychology. He examines Plato's chariot allegory, arguing that reason must guide our appetites, or else we are led astray. But he adds a crucial rider-elephant twist. Virtue isn't simply following reason. It's ingraining patterns so habitual that the elephant begins to act virtuously automatically. Modern psychology supports this. Moral behavior isn't just rational deliberation, it's virtue built through practice and habit. Building. On that, Haidt explores ancient narratives and myths as tools our writer uses to influence the elephant. These stories provide us with scripts, stories of love, courage, and sacrifice, that have an emotional impact and influence our actions. Echoing contemporary research, he emphasizes that ideas rooted in tradition and ritual tend to have more staying power than purely rational arguments. In his fourth hypothesis, Haidt challenges the Enlightenment idea that the self is entirely fixable and improvable through reason. He rebukes the utopian faith that we can create ourselves from scratch. Instead, combining Darwinian psychology and virtue ethics, he argues that while we have some agency, most of our character emerges from biology and early experiences. Accepting our limitations paradoxically frees us to focus on what we can change: minds and habits, rather than chasing radical transformation. Chapter 5 introduces the concept of the happiness set point, an idea from positive psychology and behavioral genetics that each person has a baseline level of happiness. External changes, winning the lottery or suffering tragedy, often have only temporary effects. We quickly adapt and return to our baseline. Haidt explains this through the concept of the hedonic treadmill, noting that the same internal factors, personality, mindset, and habits, matter more for lasting happiness than do external circumstances. He also interrogates ancient prescriptions, gratitude, simplicity, the admonition to not attach to outcomes, as scientifically grounded strategies to reset our emotional adaptation. Gratitude journaling, mindful appreciation, and savoring. Small joys aren't just nice philosophies. They're empirically proven to shift our baseline upward over time. From here, Haidt examines social connectedness in Chapter 6. He maintains that relationships, including romantic, familial, and social ties, are not just sources of pleasure, but are vital for one's health and happiness. Using social integration metrics, Durkheim highlighted that meaningful relationships surpass wealth in predicting longevity and overall vitality. Psychological studies underline love, mutual relationships, and a sense of belonging as crucial components of resilience, mental health, and stress resistance. In Chapter 7, which deals with kindness and compassion, Haidt deepens the discussion. He studies the Golden Rule from Buddhism and love thy neighbor from Christianity. Altruism strengthens social bonds and joy, but on top of that, compassion is ethical. Compassion, as research indicates, promotes a sense of connection and joy. It is also true that acts of altruism stimulate the brain's pleasure centers, which improves our well-being even as we assist others. Haidt's examination of the well-known hypothesis, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," leads to the topic of adversity. He tackles resilient post-traumatic growth and shows that struggling with challenges often gives rise to new understanding, self-knowledge, and purpose. Ancient Stoics considered embracing difficulties as self-improvement opportunities. Modern psychology corroborates that manageable hardships, when conquered, make us stronger. But, according to Haidt, one should beware of glamorizing trauma, considering that growth is dependent on it, not guaranteed. Crucially, the right mindset and support system make the difference in transforming adversity into flourishing. As we near the end, Haidt weaves in meaning and purpose. He reviews philosophical traditions, from the Upanishads to Nietzsche, arguing that true happiness is not found in pleasure, but in meaning between things. When we connect with family, work, art, spirituality, nature, or service, we participate in narratives larger than ourselves. Haidt says that our rider and elephant use rituals, community, and a shared identity to anchor meaning in everyday life. JamesStuber.com. He underscores how rituals function psychologically. Through bodily engagement, emotion, and communal reinforcement, rituals foster alignment between our psychological levels: biological, psychical, cultural. Whether through religious traditions, civic customs, or simple family routines, we create cohesion. Our lower-level traits, coping mechanisms, and life story integrate when scaffolded by rituals, providing meaning at multiple levels. Finally, Haidt synthesizes his hypotheses in a great balancing act. Happiness emerges when the rider and elephant are aligned, and when the individual is embedded within solid social structures and meaningful narratives. He revisits each hypothesis, reminding readers that each ancient insight tested against science shows how moderate gains, small daily improvements, compound into lasting well-being. Haidt closes by offering practical advice. Practice gratitude, build relationships, pursue challenges with the view they might strengthen you, cultivate virtue, find rituals, and pay attention to your mind's overflow of intuitions and narratives. Happiness shows up not as a static state, but as the emergent property of a life woven together: reasoned, emotional, social, moral. Key takeaways. The mind is divided, rider and elephant. Recognize how emotions, elephant, often overrule reason. Rider, aim to harness both via habit, reflection, and narrative structuring. Reframing our interpretations. Ancient philosophers knew that shifting perspective changes experience. Modern therapy confirms this. Thoughts shape feelings and can be recalibrated. Virtues through the combination of reason and habit. Merely reflecting rationally is insufficient. Virtues are made permanent through habit, repetition, and emotional investment. Ancient and modern psychology reinforce each other. Narratives and rituals guide the elephant. Storytelling, ritual, and tradition embed moral and emotional leanings deeper than rational argument. Embrace human limits. We aren't infinitely malleable. Acknowledge innate constraints and focus where change is possible. Habits, environment, mindset. The happiness set point exists. External changes quickly fade in emotional impact. 2. Improve baseline happiness. Focus inward. Attitudes, relationships, meaning. Relationships matter most. More than wealth, status, or individual accomplishments, social integration improves well-being. Altruism and compassion, acts of kindness, boost happiness both in the giver and receiver. Ancient moral codes echo modern findings. Adversity fosters growth when framed well. Trauma can be transformative, not just damaging, if met with resilience and meaning-making. Meaning binds everything together. True happiness arises between connections to others, work, and something greater. Rituals and shared stories unify layers of self. In conclusion, the happiness hypothesis demonstrates the strength of the connection between ancient wisdom and contemporary science. Across metaphors, stories, and studies, Haidt reveals that lasting happiness is not accidental. It is cultivated by aligning our emotional elephant and rational rider, weaving ourselves into supportive communities, engaging in virtuous practices, and anchoring our lives in meaning. Happiness, he suggests, is not only a personal pursuit, it's a way of living in sync with our nature.